Hey there. I thought I was going to talk about one topic, but then I asked my cards, what do you think I should talk about? And it gave me this whole other thing. Maybe the other topic will tie in. We'll see. I'm just going to start talking about it, but I pulled some cards. What we're going to talk about is new beginnings, which you know if you clicked on this, because I'll probably be titling this video something about that. New beginnings. All right, I've got these cards stacked a little backwards, so let me start from the beginning. The beginning card. The Nine of Swords. It's just finally realizing that you can't keep up with the way things have been going. Whatever's been going on hasn't been working. Whatever thoughts you've been thinking haven't been producing good results. Whatever cycle you've been in has been exhausting, and you have exhausted it. Meaning you are ready to break this free. You are ready to focus on it and be like, yeah, I'm leaving this behind. This is too much. I'm done. And there may be some grief with it, right? And there may be some, I'm not sure what to do next. I can't believe I spent all that time in this, or this was really difficult, or, and this, she's on her knees on the ground. She's been brought to her knees. Like it really was a long, tough cycle, right? Or this realization and truth, which is come through living out what has been going on. It doesn't have to be a she, but in this card it's a she. This realization and truth of where it led her, where all that led her, is just something that needs to be processed through. And then it's like, oh yeah, I'm 8 of Cups. I'm going to be going towards something else. Like I am stepping away from this. I have learned lessons. I have realized a lot about myself through this process, and I will be keeping that part with me as I go. She's off into the horizon here. And the card has this framing of scribbles or whatever, but it's like we're peering into this, her walking off into the sunset. Is that a bird ahead of her there? See off her shoulder there, that thing, that must be a bird, right? So it's like she's had a thought or an idea that leads her out of this. And she's had to carry herself up out of the depths of something that was really involved emotionally. Alright, I gotta take this call, guys. I'll be right back. Okay. So we just did the 8 of Cups. Next came the Hierophant in reverse. So it's kind of like you just can't keep going the way you've been going. Even if it's very traditional, even if what you've been doing has been all the right things, it's like that is not working. Or even if you really believed in, or even if you've been doing it for a long time. So maybe even this has to do with old coping mechanisms no longer working, methods that worked for you before not working anymore, ways of thinking just feeling outdated, or you've seen a bigger picture now and you can't go back to that. Even if everyone around you seems to be still steeped in the traditions of how you were doing it, it's just not working for you anymore. And we've got the Ace of Pentacles. So you know that you have to set out and do things differently. And that it's like you've not done it this way before. So this is a beginning. This is a new beginning that you are like setting forth in the physical world, meaning it is taking action to do, right? Like, because this isn't just like a mindset changing. This is going to start with a mindset change, but then eventually correlate to some actions taken, like meaning the new beginning is something that you actually take one step at a time into. And as you do so, you know you can't do it the old way. You know you're ready to give up the past and the burdens and the grudges, except for as you try to take these first steps into this new way, you start feeling all the burdens. We've got 9 of Wands in reverse. And you start feeling the leftover remnants of the coping mechanisms and the ways and the thoughts and the feelings that have not yet been processed. Any grudges or old beliefs that are still with you, that can't come with you, that you see now as you are taking the first steps and finding the challenges and the resistance within that. It's revealing to you the actual work that you need to do to release more fully more aspects of the past, right? Because it just can't come with you. You notice that it's an inhibition to what your new beginning is. It's like realizing, oh, well, this doesn't work for me anymore. I'm going to go in this direction. And then like realizing like, oh, there's like a string here holding me. I got to go untie that. Or like when you're vacuuming the house and then you realize that your cord is caught on something on the other end of the house. So you can't get to the corner that you need to like vacuum just to finish up. You've got to now walk back over to where the cord is caught, untangle it or whatever, let it loose, and then you can come back up and reach the corner that you need to vacuum. You know what I mean? So you're realizing those things that need to be let go of. And in doing so, there it may also be that you need to rest. Like maybe you're realizing, okay, as I let go of these things and integrate these parts of myself that weren't quite on board, I'm needing to integrate. So it's taking like some rest days. Like there may be some rest involved. And I would say during that rest, Ace of Cups, during that rest time, what you find is that you get more in touch with your inside, your heart, and what your heart's desire is. And you focus on self-care. The self-care is what you're doing as you are like letting loose of all those things that were still causing resistance or causing burden as you go forward. It's like you're loving yourself into the place. Like you're not berating yourself and saying, oh, I can't believe I'm still doing this all this time later and this isn't serving me. No, it's more like oh, I see. We can also let this go. Okay, nice. Good job on, noticing that. I'm so glad that I'm realizing this. So glad that I'm setting myself free. I'm so glad that I'm taking the time to rest. I'm so glad that I'm feeding myself good food. I'm so glad that I'm doing the things to respect myself, my own journey. I'm filling up my own cup. I'm letting go of all the things that no longer serve me. But I'm not letting go with like hatred or regret. I'm fully integrating everything for the gold in it, so that I'm taking with me all the good stuff that I gained from the process of having lived it. And then we have the Chariot. And this allows you to move forward. This allows you to take the road to where you're going, right? And this way, when you're going, each step you take is a heart-based step. So you're taking steps that are in the highest good of you and all. So these are heart-based actions that you're taking, right? Heart-based actions that you take into the real world. And the reason why I know it's actions that you're going to take in the real world, because we've got the Eight of Pentacles as the last card. So once you know what your heart wants to do as the next step, you take the step, and that is followed through with action. So your feminine energy is getting the intuitive prompt, and then you're taking it to your masculine energy and actually doing the action in the real world to take this new beginning forward, to take yourself into this new beginning. And I got something further to talk about when I laid the Chariot card. This stream of energy that popped into my head was like this. Okay, so when some of the things that you might be letting go of, when we're born into this society and we are programmed by our environment and we get certain pains and hurts and things that we don't understand and overwhelms, and these are all like building our ego, because our ego's job is to protect us from those things that we want to avoid or have not yet been prepared to process through, or to deal with any misunderstandings that we have. Our ego like constructs this whole way of operating, right? Based on the environment and our experiences of the environment, the stories we've told to go along with the experiences we've had. Our ego holds that structure for us, right? And sometimes, like, did I mention in this video that, I don't know if I mentioned my mother's coming over today. You know, and what's coming to mind, like, I don't have an issue with, like, needing to present a certain image to my mother of myself, right? But, like, you know how sometimes you'll see movies. I know this happens to some people where they're like, my mother's coming over, I need to have everything perfect. I need to have this cleaned up, and I need to have this looking this way, you know? And it's like, because she'll criticize, or she'll judge, or she'll be disappointed, right? And I think maybe an earlier version of me might have understood that behavior. But this version of me, you know, my mother, she can take me or leave me. You know I'm confident that I'm always trying to be my best version of myself, so I don't have to like put on a mask and pretend to be a certain way when my mother comes over. But society and an earlier version of me might have, right? Like, some people have been trained up in this way where they have to present a certain image to get the love. And so, you know, just using this as an example, you could apply it to anything, like in your job and in amongst your peers, or even to your own standards. You're telling yourself that you're useless unless you live up to this, or until you make this amount of money per year, you haven't made it. You know, like, setting these frameworks for ourselves is an understandable thing to do when we're operating from these egoic coping mechanisms, these structures that we've formulated to keep ourselves safe. But those structures are essentially like our lesson plan, you know, because if you think about it, like, you're born into this world as a being that has a soul, and yes, an agenda to live out, but like that agenda, the way that it's presented to you in this world is whatever your ego sets up for you. And you may, this, I don't know if this is the best analogy, but maybe calling it like like an obstacle course. It's like, okay, my ego is set up this, this, and this. These are the criteria that I'm allowed to operate in until they fail. And then I realize, oh, this is limiting me, or, oh, there's a better way, or, oh, I should free myself from this limitation. You know what I mean? Or maybe you even get inspired. Maybe it's like you get capped out and you're like, oh, I've achieved this thing that my ego said that we were working towards, and now I feel like there's got to be more. Oh, look what that person's doing. I'm inspired to do that, you know? So the ego can be something that, you know, leads us into limitation, or, you know, wanting to change our ways by the contrast, but it can also lead us into places where we get inspired to something else. So I'm not saying that the ego is wrong. I'm just saying, like, what this is like just like a bunch of ways of operating that are just that. Meaning, I exist beyond my ego. Like, my ego is just the game I'm playing. You know what I mean? So if I've been playing this game set up by my ego, and I've kind of unlocked a few things and realized, like, I didn't want to do this, and I've kind of relaxed my ego here and humbled it there, and, you know, allowed it to get on board with actually listening to my divine guidance and my soul's plan and making that its priority. Like, I want to live out God's divine will through my being. Like, my creator also had a plan for me. My creator knew that I would come into this existence and that I would follow that place within me, that heart space that flows with everything in this divine creation. You know, you could refer to it as the flow state or the Tao. And this is that place where you lose track of time, where you're doing what you know is your thing. You're experiencing what you're meant to. And it is the win-win-win. It's going to be something that doesn't make anyone else lose out. And it's not requiring you to prove yourself to anyone or present a certain image to anyone so that they think of you a certain way or deal with you a certain way or aren't intimidated by you. You know, it's none of those things. Those would all be ego coping structure things. So this more pure version of us doesn't necessarily follow the rules, right? It can look really weird to other people who are still doing what their environment taught them to do or what their ego decided was the best way to cope and navigate life. So it's not about comparison and competition. It's literally about me and creator. It's about you and creator and what that divine expression of creator looks like when it comes through you. And this is kind of like an opportunity to step either into that space or closer into that space, right? Into a segment of that space that you know is right. And so when you are taking these heart-based steps, you know that you're in divine flow. You know that you're stepping into the place where it's the win-win-win. Meaning, it's a place where you flow with what all that is, and that you're not trying to devise or strategize or coerce or manipulate or expect or need something to turn out the way that you expect or want it to. Now, what I'm not saying that if your heart told you that what you're going to do next is to create, let's just say, a healing center. And you know that now you have to take the steps in the physical world to start creating a healing center. I'm not saying that it would be wrong to expect that you would create a healing center or be attached to the outcome of the healing center. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that as you go through the process of doing so, that maybe you're going to contact this person or that person to collaborate with on the project. You don't have expectations in your relationship with them, right? You're going in to inquire and discern whether or not this is someone to collaborate with on this project. And expectations of the outcome, you know, things could turn out much better. You might be learning something that you didn't expect to learn. A lot of times what I've learned through this spiritual journey is that the process of getting from here to there teaches us so much that was the whole thing of it. So what if you felt in your heart that you were setting out to build a healing center? I'm not saying that you might, come to a place where you don't actually open a healing center. But what I am suggesting is that the person you become and you allow yourself to be, and what you shed and learn in the process of starting where you are and getting to being the person who started a healing center, like that is all part of it. And it's a really important part of it. So you can see how if your ego was running the show and your ego was like still trying to achieve a certain like income per year or something like that, and that wasn't what God had in mind for you, that wasn't what your soul or your creator was actually, holding space for you in, you could see that you'd kind of run into a lot of roadblocks, and things would just be not as pleasant as they are when they're in the flow state. What flow state is like, things are falling into place. Like you needed that thing and then someone offered it to you. You're at the right place at the right time. You just like have all these solutions easily accessible to you. You lose track of time because you're just so like at one with nature and all that is. Have you experienced that? Have you ever been doing a hobby and just like lost track of time? That's you in the flow state. And that's what I'm referring to. That's different from when our ego is orchestrating and wanting to achieve things, right? I just heard that saying, like, if it's meant to be, it will be. And it doesn't mean we don't take action. So what's the difference? What's the difference? Right? So you get the divine inspiration. Like your heart knows something. And then it's time to take action. It's like, what actions are the appropriate actions to take? That's your masculine energies, job, right? It's like, if you're not sure, if you don't have complete clarity, then you ask for the next step. Ask and you shall receive. But if you don't know if what you're doing is appropriate or not, like if that's the next step you should be taking or not, maybe it's time for a pause. Maybe it's time for one of those rests where you get the epiphany again, where you get an urge or an inspiration. And also, like, look at your motives and look at your intentions, like, and make sure that's in line with God's will. Is it the win-win-win? If you ever find yourself doing something where someone loses out, where someone else's free will is not being honored, then you know that you're in the wrong direction. All right, I am brought to this topic now. I will talk about it. Sometimes when I'm on Instagram, I look at, readings and readers sometimes on there. So in the feed, sometimes it will also, not things I subscribe to, but it will show something like a love spell. Or what are the other kind of things? Sometimes manifesting spells too. Okay, so these kind of things, I'm always like, scroll right past that. I'm not going to be involved in that. You know why? Because when you are doing magic like that, if you are impeding on somebody else's will, then what you are doing is creating a loop of energy where you're going to have to learn the lesson about impeding on someone else's will. Sometimes that's going to come in through somebody else impeding on your will. A lot of times. It's always going to come in as a lesson. Because that's not the win-win-win. If someone has to lose their freedom for you to achieve what you want, that is not the win-win-win. Right? That's not God's plan. Now, maybe what you're trying to achieve, say you do love somebody and you're like trying to use a love spell to bring them in or something, right? It's like, if you actually love somebody, you know that poem, if you love something, set it free. If it comes back to you, it was yours. If it doesn't, it never was. Something like that. Please comment if you know who wrote that poem. I totally forget now. But it's like that. It's like love is wanting the best for somebody else. You know, love is holding somebody else's highest good as your intention. And don't they get to decide that? You know? Don't they get to use their free will to decide? And why would you want to use coercion or manipulation to bring somebody into your life when you could never trust that they were there of their own free will? Don't you want somebody that actually chooses you with their heart, that God allowed to choose you with their heart? That's the win-win-win. Two people choosing each other with their hearts and choosing each other again and again and again. That's what it is. That's what love is. So I don't believe in using magic to achieve these things, because I think that comes from the ego's agenda. So it becomes the lesson plan, right? That goes back to the lesson plan. So I'm not saying you're a terrible, wrong person if you do these things, right? I know that one time I tried a spell. One time in this lifetime. I was earlier on in my journey. I've since canceled, cleared, deleted it, and I knew it was wrong when I did it. I felt that it was wrong when I did it. I was like, oh, this feels wrong. I'm never doing this again. I'm not doing this again. I just knew. Probably from another lifetime or something, right? I probably did that kind of stuff in another lifetime. And when I tried it in this lifetime, I just remembered, my soul remembered, no, dumb. And the only thing I can really compare it to besides that for my own life is when I first realized I could do energy healing and quantum healing. I was like, oh yeah, I'll do this. This is what I want to do. Just line the people up. I'll heal them. Touch healing, I was like, thinking this is definitely worthwhile endeavor, and this will give me meaning, and I want it to be that important. Those, you can just recognize it when I'm saying it. Those are all egoic ways of coping, right? Because in fact, when I tried to establish myself as that type of healer, what God brought me was examples of people where it wasn't appropriate to do that. Narcissistic people who didn't want me to succeed, whose agenda was actually to never let me see my own worth, so who would never allow that healing to work on them. And I was like, dang. And then all my insecurities were brought into my awareness. Oh, you think you're going to bypass all of this stuff that's in your psyche that you haven't dealt with yet and you think you're just going to focus on this one task and be really good at it so you can bypass all the other things that are holding you back? No, that's not your path. And so I had to respect that. I had to say, and it also taught me about the healing process, which is, sure, I can use energy medicine and I can assist somebody else's body to take those energy healing codes and implement them. I can do that. But I think it's from the Bible. Is there a quote in the Bible that says something like, before you heal someone, ask them if they're willing to give up the thing that made them sick? It's like, yeah, because it's a waste of time. If I do give someone the healing codes, and even if they immediately experience results from that, but they haven't given up the thing that actually brought them to that space, they could go home, the thing would come back, and then they're calling me a quack. It's not worth it, because it actually could inhibit that person as well. Say I took away an ailment of somebody and their body needed them to rest, or they needed to learn a lesson through the process of healing themselves. The other way, not through the energy. Somebody's beeping. Hold on. I'm so sorry. I might have actually lost my train of thought right there. I was talking about why... Okay, so how I came to realize that I can't just like offer someone who is not on this like path the healing codes, because it may interfere with their journey. And if the intention for doing so is coming from my ego, then that's not necessarily in the highest good of all. And that brings me to the topic of manifesting. So when we manifest something, like, it's not wrong, we have desires and wants as humans, and even our ego, especially safety, right? Especially like knowing that we have a good foundation, that we're not going to like sink to homeless and be in poverty and things like that. Those are valid, understandable things that we want and desire as humans and that we want to manifest. But at the same time, if you put fear into the formula, you're not manifesting from the right space, first of all. And second of all, even if you do use the correct formula for your manifestations, I think it's important and wise to add in that you want what's in the highest good of all. So when you're putting yourself in the vibration to receive something, that you're saying in the highest good of all. So that if it's not in the highest good of you or someone else, that it won't be, you know what I mean? That you've put that stipulation and intention into the formula of your manifestations, because divine will, God's will, isn't that what you want to be in touch with? Isn't that what you want to live out? Personally, I feel safest in that space, right? Because that's the biggest picture view. My view is not the biggest picture view. God's will is the biggest picture view. And I've tuned myself like a vessel that can feel God's will, right? So now I know, like, if that's coming from God, if that is my flow state, I know what that feels like. So I know what I can trust. So what I know when I'm doing, what I'm saying, if I start talking bullshit, I know it. It doesn't happen anymore because I feel it. I'll feel the thought stream and I'll go, oh, that's not for me. I'll stay on the one that feels in flow. You'll see me sometimes talk from notes, and you can tell that it's not the same flow. It's not the same feel. It's because a lot of times when my mind has gone into analysis mode, I'll get information, and yes, it could be just as valuable, but I'm not presenting it from the flow state when I'm later on sometimes. You know what I mean? Because the flow state doesn't need to plan ahead. It is. It's the now. It's presence. So I like that to be my method of transportation, And then I don't have to compete or prove myself or hide myself or whatever. It's just like, I am a piece of creation here, experiencing things. And I have some things to accomplish and contribute and experience and learn. And I want to do all those things. So I have to be in the states and work to be in the states that allow me that. And when you do it, like, then it's not work anymore. It's kind of like, it would be harder for me to be in a state of disharmony. It would cause me discomfort that I would notice, and then I would automatically put work in to get back into the flow, right? So I got these cards at the same time that I pulled those other ones, so we might as well just look at them. And the first card that came was discipline. I can accomplish what I set my mind to. So that has to do with the taking the action, but it also has to do with what I just said, which is I have my mind set up. I have my operating system set up that when I know that I'm in a dull note, when I know I'm out of my flow state, my discipline is what brings me back, because I repetitively trained myself to notice and then allow myself to come back into the flow, into that balanced state, right? So I did that for myself. I put that in my operating system. And as well as the ability to like just keep taking one step in front of the other. I didn't know the value of that. You know how I learned the value of that, to be honest? My last boyfriend. So it's been a while. You know, I met him like 10 years ago now. We've been apart like 4. But just by observing him, God taught me about the value in putting one foot in front of the other. Because sometimes, I'm going to use this example because this is just the one that came to my mind, but there are countless examples that I witnessed him in this. But this one example was, I had this little car. I forget what it was. It's just like a little golden car. And my driveway, it was winter. My driveway was like a drive around, like, but it had like this little hill. And I got stuck. I got stuck down in the dip of the hill before I could pull out. So like to get out of that spot, it was a lot of snow. I mean, the car was deep in, not on the packed snow, in the snow that was like, so getting the car out was, I mean, it was one of those things that I was like, oh my God, like how am I going to do this without something to pull it or whatever, right? And I believe at the time he did not have his vehicle there. So he didn't have his truck. He was actually not driving at the time. I was our driver. And so we just had this little car. And he figured out a way to get that car unstuck with some like levers and like all kinds of things that I would never have even known about or thought of. But also, whatever plan that he was making was so far thought ahead. It was so like his big picture view. Like he knew that this was going to take steps. It wasn't just going to be like, do this and that's done. It's like, no, do this, then 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 this. Oh, that didn't work. Shh, okay. How about this, this, and this? Oh, okay. That works. You know, it was like that. And I watched him do this, what I would have amounted to as like, we got to wait till spring and this thing thaws out and then hope we can get out of the mud that's going to settle in when the snow melts. Like that's how it felt to me. But he just handled it with like propping things up and levers and jacks and, you know, it was because it was just at this weird angle too, because it was like down in a valley. That was complicating things a lot, you know? If I could have shown you a little video clip of him doing this, like in a fast forward motion, I think it would be more impressive the way I'm telling it. But like, I had noticed that pattern in him, that things that I would have felt like very intimidated by and thought like, wow, that's like impossible. I don't even know how to do that. He just like took everything on. Anything he faced, he took it on one step at a time. And here's the thing about him too. He wasn't like rushing around, exerting himself to like exhaustion or anything. He was like casual. The whole effing time, he's casually like, I'm just gonna put this over here. Bang this here. All right, I'll go look at it from the other side and see if it's all in the right spot. Come back over here. Like, it was like cool, calm, and collected. Knew that he would be handling the situation and did not panic. And so I knew he was in his flow state too, right? Because he knew how to do it. It was going to happen. As soon as he was on the job, I always knew like it's going to be happening. Like, I don't know. I don't see it. I don't know how, but phew, thank God he's here because he's got this and he's got this cool, calm, and collectedly. And watching him, I learned the value in taking things step by step, because whereas so many times it was like I wouldn't have even started. I wouldn't have even started or tackled the issue because I was so intimidated by it. But he just started it with one step at a time. And I watched how valuable that is for accomplishing things, right? So I was really inspired by someone else into my discipline on things like that. And also perseverance, which he also did very well as well. But that's something I've always had anyway. I didn't need to be inspired to perseverance because I guess I don't know. I understood the value in perseverance. Like you don't lose as long as you don't give up, you know? So this is kind of saying, like, through this new beginning, discipline and perseverance, very important. And that you may come to a point where you have doubts. And I think it's trying to recognize this as a very normal part of the process, right? It says, let me read the perseverance first. I know that I can do whatever I set my mind to. Yeah. Doubt says, I release the need to know all the answers. Ah, yes. That's the thing it wants us to know about doubt, that we are reaching into the space of the unknown. Sometimes when we're going to like heart-based inspiration to start a healing center, sometimes we don't know how it's going to happen. Sometimes we do need to take it one step at a time, and that we're blind to the whole big picture, but that we know if we ask, we shall receive the next step. The divine creation, the flow state, knows how this can come together, right? Release the need to know all the answers. When you are in that surrendered state of trust, you know that you're not in the ego. The ego wants to know. The ego has something to prove. The ego has an agenda. Then we have courage. Yes, courage. I find the inner strength to face fear with confidence. Courage is, there's a safety net here. Like, what's the worst? Sometimes I'll look at the worst case scenario in order to help me get courage. Because if I know that I can survive the worst case scenario, it's probably not going to happen. But even if it did, I'd be okay. So then I can go forward. You see? It's like, make yourself a safety net if you need to. But courage is, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to do this. Courage is, whatever the outcome, I can handle this. Courage is, I have the impetus to do this, and so I shall. Courage is, I'm going to be okay even if this works out. Courage is, I may learn a lot through the process of doing this, so let me see what this is. A lot of times we like to know what's going on and like to know the answer and like to see ahead and all that. We like to know because then we can plan and then we can feel safe and then we can, do what we think is right. And if you think about it, that's understandable for the way we've grown up, but that's so far from being in the flow state. It's too calculated. The calculations should come later when we know what we are going to accomplish, and then we calculate the best route to get there. And that's also going to not be necessarily the route without challenges. Like this reading revealed, when you got this idea and you were going to set forth and take the first steps, you realize, oh shit, there's some things holding me back here. What are they? Oh, I feel a little insecure. I feel like, what if this fails? What else am I going to be able to do with my life? Or what if people know that I failed? I'll be humiliated. Well, in those cases, you're going to have to be the person who loves you even if you feel humiliated. You're going to have to be the person who loves you even if you don't know what to do next. Be your own safety net. Be the one who's there for you, who's in this process with yourself. And that's what part of that step of the Ace of Cups was, with self-love, with tending to self. Because you're going on a journey here. It's a journey of unknown. You want to know you have a good, backbone and a good partner, and that's you. And then we've got humor. I like this because when you're proceeding forward from what was intuitively inspired or inspired from the heart, it's very lighthearted, right? There's like this innocence of a child that comes along with being in the flow state. It's like you're not in mimic, you're not doing what you were told, you're just in this like, I'm new at this and anything can happen, and woo. It says, I choose to focus on the lighter side of life. Yeah, it doesn't have to be so serious. And remember I was talking about how I watched my ex take step one foot in front of the other, and like he was cool, calm, and collected, meaning like he took it lightly, and that was part of the charm of watching it. That was part of the wow of watching it, because up until that point in my life, most challenges immediately put me in a state of emergency, in a state of like, oh shit, like now I'm fucked. Like, oh no, how am I going to survive this? You know? Like past versions of me would have snowballed, like, oh, I know I don't have a vehicle. Now I'm not going to be able to get to work. I'm going to starve because I can't get groceries. I'm going to have a terrible life because I can't go anywhere. Like it would just like snowball this, to this tragedy when that's not really the truth, right? The truth is that there is always a solution. The truth is that if we allow it, that the solution will come. And yeah, it might take some steps, and it might take our own discipline to be willing to take those steps. And it also might take some courage. But let's not forget to take our humor. The humor is going to make the whole perseverance thing a lot more enjoyable, because how we talked about, like, it is the process of getting from here to there that also matters a lot. That is the thing. And it's like, why not make that enjoyable too? Like, it can be enjoyable. Like, it's not just like work really hard to get to the place and then celebrate. Why not celebrate everything along the way? These are all parts of the process that were pertinent, were required to even get where you were going. And were the thing that you were doing. The living part is the fun part, right? We're not living just to accomplish things. We're living because we're alive. So even the new beginning can also be like, what are you doing now that you know that you're living to just be alive? What do you want to do now? Do you want to do those accomplishments that you thought were important to all the people that told you they were very important to be in your focus? It's like, oh, actually, now that I know I can do anything, what is it that my heart wants to do? What is God's plan? What is my flow state leading me to? What if? Yeah, what if? What if is a beautiful question to ask self. When we're doing shadow work, the question is, what would be so bad about that? To figure out where our inhibitions and our fears are. But when we're moving towards our limitless possibilities, it's like, what if? And then, like, what comes out of that question? Yay! All right, sorry if I seemed a little bit distracted after the second half of the reading, because, like, I feel like I started being more forceful with my words or whatever. Like, I didn't lean back into that flow state. So let's just, like, I'm going to do that with my own energy, and you can see if you feel a difference in my own energy when I shift back into my feminine receptive place where I'm more close to the flow state than I was just expressing that latter part of the reading after I had the interruption of a package delivery. What do you think? To me, the difference feels like it's the difference between like grinding and trying and just like floating. Floating. Alright, that's all for now.